guys go. That's always been really important to me. So, I want to say thank you to everyone that's come out. We're going to go ahead and declare a quorum. We're also going to stand up and we're going to pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We're in public comment. Sign up for public comment. Should be outside. No? Okay, so no public comment. So, that being said, we're gonna start, our meeting. And I just want to say, the purpose of this meeting is really for one reason, to propose, we're gonna take action on the proposed tax rate for the upcoming 23-24 year. As many of y'all already know, you watched the news, you've been here at city council meetings, and I've reported that the city's been running a deficit for over 6 years. We've exceeded revenue over every year since 2016. And today, the purpose of our meeting here is just basically to go over our tax rate for this year. The budget that we're considering will raise more revenue from property taxes than last year's budget by amount of $428,297, which is a 49.82% increase from last year's budget. The property tax revenue to be raised from new property added in the tax roll this year is $59,691. I'm going to hand things over to Paul, our financial consultant. He's going to go over some information, and we're going to try. We don't have a whole lot of answers to your questions, but we're going to try as we move along.
Thank you very much. We're still trying to make some technical adjustments in order to get the display going. But basically, we reviewed, or I would like to review, the table of contents of the workbook that we had this last Saturday. Basically, we went through the recorded results from 2016 to date. As Mayor indicated, those results do show annual deficits or expenditures in excess of revenues. We also talked about some of the issues that were associated with the current year budget in terms of utilizing cash balances as part of the revenue stream without making a consideration of having a cash balance at the end of the period. We briefly touched base on some of the tax-related materials, which we'll talk more about here momentarily, but those materials included the truth in taxation calculations, which are promulgated by the legislature and calculated by our tax assessor collector. And in addition to that, we also had the certified tax rolls from the appraisal district. In summary, that certified tax roll indicated a taxable value on the rolls for the city of approximately $150 million. It also reflected that the average home on the tax rolls was approximately $190,000 of market value with a taxable value of approximately $145,000. There were some items that we did not touch base upon, but we will hopefully as we continue through this process. Those items are shown as open items on the index. Financial policies. Organizations like the City of Odem need to have written financial policies and review those policies on an annual basis. Those reviews usually take place during the budget process because they form the basis and the foundation for the assumptions that are made for revenue generation as well as for expenses. There were examples given last Saturday of, for instance, having an emergency reserve of at least 25% of your annual expenditures of the general fund. Well, to get to that point, if you were to do it all in 1 year, you would need a line item expenditure in this budget of $500,000. That's not realistic. What is more realistic and what is typically done towards reaching a goals when the goals are new and fresh is to take a portion of it. What we have suggested is you take 1/5 of your targeted goal and include that in your budget. In other words, it's $100,000. In actuality, it's 97,000, but I keep harping about 6-digit items, so I'm going to round it to $100,000. We have also not talked about the employee compensation and benefit packages. One of the best and most important assets that the city has is its staff. Council did approve an increase in the employee health insurance, and that went into effect, I believe, July 1, which was approximately a 13% increase in the premiums. Nonetheless, as part of this budget process, it would be appropriate for the council to consider a compensation adjustments for the city staff. At a 5% increase, that increase would cost the city $40,000. $32,000 of that is W-2 wages. The remaining $8,000 would be benefits, FICA tax, employer share of FICAs and things of that nature, retirement. We also have some significant insurance renewals coming. We don't know yet what those renewals will look like. I spoke today with representatives of the windstorm carrier who said that they will not quote a renewal unless you're within 3 weeks of renewal. Well, that's another week and a half from now. Last year, that insurance policy went from $60,000 to $135,000. This year, they're saying they are seeing increases from 15 to 25% again. We are in the process of getting secondary quotes from a secondary broker. But it's an example of how there are still some significant unknowns as part of our budget draft. And to recap and summarize with regards to Saturday's workshop, one of the things that I wanted to stress but forgot to before the meeting adjourned, the council members are what drive this process. It's the citizens that provide the roadmap, if you will, in terms of providing to the council members what they consider to be their individual priorities. But you, the council members, have the responsibility of sifting through all of those different conflicting priorities and coming up with what is best for the city in your own individual judgment. You are not going to agree with each other. It's a process. It's a difficult process. And to help with that process, my mom always had this thing about round to-its. But something that's better than a round to-it for this situation is a stick to it. And so I'm providing each of the council members with a stick to it in hopes that we will get through this process, because my bride has asked me if I will take her to go see the leaves change in October. So let's finish this up, please. And with that, Mayor, I think we have a guest speaker with regards to the setting of tax rates.
Yes, we have the tax assessor, collector, Mary, and I'm not even gonna try.
It's Marcy.
Marcy.
Yes, Thornton.
Marcy.
It's Thornton.
Marcy.
So
Yeah, I mean,
wherever you want. I can talk loud. I'm fine. I'm fine. So, so I think, Mr. Bain, provided the worksheets for you.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
The tax rate calculation worksheet. So basically what happens there, just so everybody understands, I get the certified totals from the appraisal district, and then I do my calculations. I have more, when I do my calculations, I have more information than what he provided. I think it's just the one sheet, and there's a lot of things that go into that calculation. I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at it.
The council actually received the entirety of the TNT worksheet.
Okay.
Ms. Donna,
Ms. Donna.
Can we establish a screen, please?
Did she hear you?
Ms. Donna, can we see?
Can we get
You
the,
ready?
how do we get this to connect? Anyway, I'm just gonna start with the information. I'm connected to the doctor, yes, ma'am. You promise. Is that legible for everyone?
Make it bigger. Make it bigger.
You want me to just start from the first to let y'all know where I get these totals from? This amount? Is that what y'all
Please.
want me to do? Okay, so part of the truth and taxation is to compare last year's values, properties to this year's for 2023. And that's where I start off with the 22 taxable values. It's different from when you see it in July, July the 25th, because there's things that happen throughout the year. We have people turning 65, and that creates an exemption for them. The city doesn't offer a homestead exemption, but you do offer the exemptions for the people that are over 65, and I believe it's an additional 6,000 for when they do go over 65, and then whatever it's mandated by the state. So I get these totals right here, and it gives me a preliminary taxable value. So that's what 22 is, tax year 2022 in July when I get the figures from Mr. Cincy. And so then it goes down there. Well, can you go back up to 5 and 6? So right there in 5 and 6 there's litigation when people protest, and usually it's the big industry protests and they're not settled. You get an adjustment here in 5 and 6. There's not anything for the city of Odem that anybody's protesting. So you get an adjustment there. And then when it goes down, it'll do, so there's no court ordered adjustments, okay? So then it just brings it down, it adds it in. And then there's exemptions here, absolute exemptions, and I get all of this from the appraisal district. It's in the reports that I get for 2022, okay? So it goes on and it adjusts. And then, it creates the levy for now. It's just an adjusted levy. And then it takes the refunds that I did throughout the year when people are, they pay their taxes, they had a new exemption, and it creates a refund. So then you get an adjustment for that right there in line 16.
And the levy means what?
The levy is the amount of money you're gonna get back, the amount of money in dollars, yes, not the value, yes, that is calculated for it. And then on 18, it's the 2023 certified values. That comes from Mr. Cincy as well, okay? And so, there hadn't been any adjustments to the certified value yet for 2023 because we haven't done anything. We haven't done anything to that just yet. That starts October 1st of every year. And then this tells you that this is the value that's under protest still. The appraisal district can certify the tax roll up to 95% of the protests that have been heard. And so after that, there's still 5% that has to be heard. And for the city of Odem, it's $14 million worth of protests still. But it is the county as a whole. So he can give me those totals when there's 95% of the protests being heard. Excuse me.
And the valuation that is used by the appraisal district is their best estimate of what they think the pending appeals are going to ultimately result in.
It's the lower the value. So let's just say they valued your house at 250,000, and so you're protesting and you think it needs to be 200,000. They're going to use that 200,000 in their total. It's the lower of the value.
And so the undisputed plus the disputed of 14 gives you your taxable value of $150 million on your tax rolls.
That's correct. So that's what we can start using. We use that total to start figuring out what our tax rate can be. Okay. So, and then it'll tell you the taxable value for the new properties. I think you have your little hand on it.
Mm-hmm.
So the new properties is 6 million, right? 963,700.
Mm-hmm.
That's the new, brand new for this year. It wasn't used in last year's total. So the NNR, which we say no new revenue, that's combining the same properties this year and the year before. So this new property is not part of that, that equation. So you can see where it was deducted. Because you started out with 150 and then they deducted that 63.9, the 6,983,000. I'm sorry, I can't see that.
If it'd be easier for you to stand over there, that'd be fine too.
I just don't want to get in front of everybody. And so then your taxable value is 143 million. And that's what gets your NNR. That's comparing last year to this year. Okay. So that's what we have.
So 59 cents as a tax rate would raise the same amount of money that was raised the year before.
Right. That's correct. So then we go to our voter approval rate. So it takes the M&O tax rate from last year, and then it does those court-appointed adjustments again. And so then it takes the refunds just on the M&O side, because we're trying to figure out what was on the M&O side, and then we're going to get a debt rate. And that's what we refunded last year in 2022, and that ran from July the 1st of 2021 to June the 30th of 2022. So that's what we refunded out to people, 3,000, whatever, 3,015. So then it gives us an adjusted M&O of 0.50 cents, because it makes an adjustment there.
And that's a no new.
No, the adjusted.
Oh, that adjusted.
The adjusted, yes, because you have to make some adjustments in there. Okay, so then it goes down. We don't have any kind of mandates. We're moving way too fast.
I'm sorry. We don't have a hospital.
Okay. So, right, and there's some, if you had these other items in the city, you could make some adjustments and increase your tax rate for your expenditures. We don't have that. So, and it just keeps moving it on, doesn't change. So then when we get to right there to line 41, we can raise the rate by 3.5%. That's through the statute or property tax code. If it's a disaster year, you can do it by 8%. but that has to be declared before by the governor. So the difference between that 50 cents, 76.19 and the 0.52535 is 3.5%. You can increase it that much by
Without
property.
seeking voter approval.
That's correct. So then as we move down, what comes into play is your debt, okay? Because we got to find a debt rate. You have the M&O amount and rate, and you have your debt rate, which is known as your INS rate. So then this line 42A, that's provided to me by the jurisdictions, okay?
And this year, your debt service dropped from $135,000 to this $24,000.
And then what you have here is the calculation. So we had some excess funds. So I keep track of what I've paid out or distributed out to the city for INS. And so I do my reports. I look at what we said we were going to pay or what I got from the city the year before, and I compare it to what I've collected. So you had excess funds of $23,993. So it makes an adjustment to this year because you've collected that much more. So in essence, you should be collecting less because you have that money sitting there to pay your debt. Okay? And so then this adjusted collection rate, I also do a report, comes out of my system, it looks at what the 22 actual collection was, and it gives me a percentage, and I have to certify a percentage to all the jurisdictions by the 1st of July, or that first week of July. So I look at the rates or the collection rates that I have. You had some excess funds, so you think to yourself, okay, it's more than 100%, how can it be? Because the collection rate is based on the current year's levy, but I also collect delinquent taxes, and I also collect penalty and interest, so that goes into the calculation. So you might think, people ask, well, why is it over 100%? And that's why. Okay, and so then there's an adjustment of 23,017. So it comes back to that 150,686,730. And so then it takes your debt, it calculates a debt rate. And that's 0.015274. So that has dropped drastically.
So what is the debt rate again?
Penny and a half.
Penny and a half, 0.015274. So then you add that, wait, go back up. So you add that up to your adjusted M&O, and you come to the 5.540659. So then it goes on and you can do some adjustments. And there's some other adjustments there, and let's go back up a little bit. So this is the adjustments for additional sales tax. The city doesn't use their sales tax for property relief, but some other cities do. So if you did, there would be an adjustment that I would make here. But City of Odem does not. So all it does is just bring down that tax rate. And then the other is for pollution control. The city doesn't do any of that as well either. Okay, so the unused increment rate. The property tax code gave that to all the jurisdictions 3 years ago, and it would give you extra money on your, extra tax rate, value on your tax rate. But every year, and it'll tell you, it goes back 3 years in 2020, 2021, the city of Odem was at their VAR, or the voter approval rate, so you have no unused increments to roll over. And that's what's showing there. It was showing what the VAR was and what was adopted. And you'll see that there was no unused increment in each of those tax years.
This is a handy page because it does tell you what your tax rates were for each of those years.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, it was 82 cents. In 21, it was 75 cents. And in 22, it was 67 cents.
So there's not any.
How did it change? The value on the tax rolls changed.
So we're still at that 0.540659. And so then we get to the de minimis rate. So that's something that the property tax code would allow for cities to, under the 30,000, which the city of Odem is, to collect at least $500,000 and levy itself. But it starts with the adjusted M&O at the 0.507619. That was what you were looking at. There, you were looking at the VAR, I believe.
Yeah, I was trying to get 500,000.
I know.
And so why don't we talk a little bit about the process associated with the de minimis tax rates?
Okay, so the de minimis, you can go to the de minimis, but it also creates the ability for someone to do a petition to roll it back, which was the old term it used to be, instead of the voter approval rate, to roll it back to the VAR. So they have 90 days to get a petition of 3% of the registered voters in the county. And I think I figured it was like 46 people.
It's less than 50.
Less than 50. So what that would do it would put it on the ballot in November to roll it back
Well,
to the
it's
VA.
automatic.
No, they have to have a petition.
But if they have the petition, the rollback is automatic for the de minimis.
It's automatic to be put on the tax roll. I mean, on the ballot.
ballot?
I'm sorry, on the ballot, yes. That was what Blair, when I talked to Blair to ACT, she told me that's what that was about.
Okay.
But
So
you
that
have to,
That was
but,
my understanding, so,
yes,
so if the citizens do petition at the minimus, they have 90 days, and if they get the signature, then,
You have 20 days to validate that.
so we get 20 days to validate it, and it goes.
If this one is passed in November election.
So,
Being on the 28th today, it's 71 days from now.
so
Well, you're already, and so my understanding is there will be a test in the court of law because they give that 90 days. And you have to approve it for 71 days before at least 71 days before the election. So it has never been tested in the court of law.
So we have, it's on the paper, we'll have to get a special election.
Yes. Well, that I don't know because I'm not the election administrator. I don't know how that works. And all that would do is move it back, all it's gonna do is move it back to the VAR.
So you would be collecting, so you wouldn't be collecting taxes at the VAR
until it went through. And so that would create refunds. If people paid their taxes after that would happen, then I would have to do a new tax bill and then refund them whoever had paid. Okay? So I would do a new tax bill for that. And so emergency rate, that's when you went to the 8%, the city has not done that. So that's where we come to the total tax rate. So your VAR is 0.5954, I'm sorry, the NNR, 595456, and your VAR is 0.540659. So I do have a sheet, did you look at, I can't see right now, but the difference, I did run a sheet with the difference, did you do what it would be? What the difference would be from the VAR to the NNR? I mean, from the de minimis to the. So it's based on that 150,868,730, but I did another one right here.
Okay.
So, so if you went with the de minimis, your proposed tax rate, if you proposed the de minimis rate, it would be 1,287,930. It's 390,657 more than just the no new revenue. But we know that we've got to go with the VAR. And for the VAR, it would go to 764,913. That's what's going to be your levy. But just know that, we're still collecting delinquent taxes. There's still a possibility to collect those.
So the minimus would be how much? Would be
1,287,930.
You can get a sheet.
I just did this on my own today, so, I mean, but did they get this one?
Mm.
No? And if you go, with the VAR, it's 814,701. So you've got the VAR still, there's still a little bit of difference in there.
Which one, how much is
The VAR, 814,701. And so just let me give you a few more, totals real quick. I ran,
Which notice are you referring?
I want to give you a little bit more information. The VAR, 814,701.
The name of the notice?
The name of the notice? It's the 1A. You had it?
Yeah.
The 1A. So just to let you know, I ran a report from October the 1st of 2022 to 8/15, which is the last time I distributed to the city, okay? So what I have collected so far is 850,908.61. Okay, that's been distributed. That's M&O and INS money. So what's left to be collected as far as delinquency, 170,165.80. So for 2022, I've collected 92.45%. So we still have August, September, month and a half. So there's still room to collect from the delinquencies. That's just the levy alone.
Okay.
And as you could tell from the calculation, we had collected 104%. So we went over what our collection was at the time because you're adding delinquent taxes, penalty and interest, that kind of thing. So.
And so the reason for tonight's meeting is because the council needs to publish a tax rate prior to the hearings, public hearings that would be held. And it is generally the approach used in the municipal world that you adopt your not to exceed tax rate, being the highest tax rates that you believe that you might use, which in this case would be the de minimis tax rate. You can always set your taxes below that amount. But once you publish a rate, unless you start over,
Right.
with public hearings, you can't go above that amount. So in practice, what usually happens is that a municipality will adopt a proposed tax rate at its maximum conceivable amount, which in this case, we're proposing the de minimis tax rate as the best alternative as you go forward.
0.85?
Yes, sir.
We're still in 06.
So the thing there too is you have to give the public at least 5 days to, well,
Oh, sorry.
5 days to see it in the paper. So, and in our local newspaper, they require I have to have it to them Thursday by noon of 1 week, and it'll come out the following week. And so then you need 5 days, at least 5 days between the time that the paper comes out on Thursday and until you have your meeting.
So if you would turn it in this Thursday, it would be published next Thursday.
Right, and you
And
could
then
have
we
your
would have
public
to give
meeting
5 days.
on the 12th.
On the 12th.
Right, and so let's just say, for instance, you're saying your public meeting's on the 12th, and you decide to table it, you only have 7 days to decide what you want to do. You'd have to have a meeting on the 19th. So, and if not, we're gonna have to start all over. But just keep in mind that I do a consolidated tax bill, so, I need to get those tax bills out. I could leave the city out, but it would be at the city's expense if I had to mail out tax bills, tax bills for just the city alone. It can be done, but it would be to the city's expense.
And do you have a drop dead date?
I don't have a drop dead date.
Okay.
I don't. But the property tax code says you have to adopt a tax rate by September the 30th. Correct?
I've heard that.
Yes.
So it's like 25 cents or 26 cents per $100. extra
Difference.
If we max it out.
And how soon does the citizens have to petition?
You have 90 days to get those
90 days from when?
from the day they adopt the tax rate.
Today.
No, this is
No.
proposed. 90 days from the day that tax rate was adopted. Today's the proposed.
Okay.
When they actually adopt it, you have 90 days to file a petition.
And 3% of the population?
3% of the registered voters.
Oh,
Which
registered
is
voters.
about 46, and she said.
Yeah, about 46, 47. It's changing, and you'd have to check with the elections office to see how many, I checked last week, week before last, so that's what I have. So,
Okay.
Yeah, the city of Odem ourselves would be liable for paying the elections,
The
which
elections,
is about $25,000.
I'm not sure.
I don't think that.
So
county
as far as parcels are concerned, let me see how many parcels y'all have. 1,189 parcels. So technically that'd be about 1,189 statements that go out again. So, and then whatever they charge me per tax bill.
Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate you coming today. Anybody have any questions?
So if we wait and we approve this and they petition it, then we're at 25,000 approximately.
If they wait till the very last time to turn in a petition, if people run around and get a petition done in 2 weeks, we might be able to prevent the situation. Typically, you try to do the tax billings the last week of September.
The tax bills, no, they come out, they're supposed to be out by October 1st or as soon as they're practical, but it's gonna be like probably the second week in October because, you know, of all the pushback with the schools and all of that and having to calculate. So it won't be till the second week of October before I send those out. But I have to.
But you have to have the data
Yes,
from
yes, it takes some time
Right,
because I'm not the
okay.
only one that uses this particular
printer.
vendor.
And a petition will be turned in where?
You have to turn it into the city and they validate the signatures to make sure they're registered voters.
That's correct.
And all that would do was send you back to the VAR. That's all that would do.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll stick around a little bit in case anybody has any more
So,
questions.
does anyone on the council have a motion to propose a specific tax rate?
What is your recommendation?
Well, based on the numbers that we've seen and the deficit that we have right now, I think it's like 1.2, 1.3 million. So we have a deficit of 1.2 million, well, about 1.3 million. So whatever tax dollars we start bringing in, when we start receiving tax, it's gonna go to pay that deficit down. Not to help us get back into the black. So if the tax dollars that we generate don't cover that deficit, which either way, I don't think it's gonna cover it, even with the de minimis. That's why, you know, we'll have another budget workshop, but that's a discussion for another day. So the recommendation right now is to go with the de minimis for at least 1 year. To help us get back on track, get back on the positive side of our financial situation. And then after a year, you know, hopefully we can go back to being
Voter approved.
voter approved rate.
If we do the de minimis, sorry, if we do the de minimis at 85 cents, next year, you just go with voter approved, you won't go with a 0.85.
Well, I mean, I can't,
It could, it depends on the appraisal district.
that's correct. It depends on the values. It depends on what kind of debt you have.
Right.
There's a lot of variables. What I refunded, I mean, I don't perceive, I've not seen the city of Odem be sued by big companies that would make a big, difference.
Right.
Like the windmills, but that doesn't hurt the city.
No.
That's, that's had impact on the school districts. So I don't see anything in town that would be a big difference.
Can I ask, this year's school taxes, I mean, have you gotten that information yet?
Yes.
And what are they looking like as far as, are they going up, is staying the same?
They're going down. Part of that is because the legislature compressed their M&O rate. So their debt rate stays the same. It stays pretty steady, and it goes down and they have a schedule. But what happens is they got 100,000 in homestead exemption increased by the legislature, and they also compressed the tax rate. So all the schools have a smaller tax rate. But what's gonna happen is TEA is gonna supplement whatever they need to complete their budget. So, because they have their surplus at the state, not TEA, the state is. But, so that's where they're at.
How does the bond that they approved last year affect us? The school bond. that we
School
got?
bond, so it increased the debt rate a little bit, but, you got 100,000 off your homestead exemption, from 40,000 to 100,000. If you're over 65, they're making an adjustment for 5 years back. So if you're freezing most of the last 5 years, they're going to adjust there, so probably you're 54 or 65, and then you compress the tax. They're compressed on the interest side, which means in operations. But, the state is supplementing, so they need the rate carrying.
What about the county?
The county. So our tax rate in the county, yes, we did, the county did increase the homestead exemption from 5,000 to 20% of the market value. But, everybody's value is different. So values go up, tax rate should go down, or tax rate should go down.
So if we're looking at the illustrate, the impact that it would have the citizens would be as great as if school taxes.
Right, there's other things that you need to break, you're right.
So we're trying to get almost, it's an even swap, but I mean, it's.
It could be, you won't know until the actual tax bills come up, but actually, you will know. If you go to that countytaxrates.com, and as these proposed rates and the adopted rates going in, it'll tell you what your estimated taxes are. And what I've seen, and I think then you can vouch for me, what we're looking at, because I'm putting in that information, those tax bills are coming down.
Okay.
They're coming
So,
down.
I mean, if this is gonna happen, I mean, this would be a good year to
Yes,
kind of do
where
it.
there wouldn't be such an impact, you're right. And you're not the only city that's going with amendments. I can tell you that.
That's what I was gonna ask.
You're not the only city that's going with amendments. So everything is increasing, everything's increasing.
I know
Not
you
the only
can
one.
probably shed a little light on what's going on over there. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Who, me?
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with you. I think because to make up that money, we need to go with it.
So this is, a good year basically.
I think so,
Because of
especially because of those exemptions. I don't know.
because we don't know next year, if we try to do it next year, if we don't make it to this year and we're still struggling, and we try to do it next year, the school, everything could be different
That's
around
correct.
across the board, and then the parents. Because our council members' biggest concern is, well, how is it gonna impact, our community? I mean, and that's my concern.
That's
So
correct.
when I look at these numbers, working with Paul for the last few weeks, I'm like, man, if this is gonna happen, it happens to happen. It has to happen this year because it's gonna need the least
That's correct.
impact, we pay taxes, my
Sure.
mom pays taxes too, so this is something that, it's gonna affect me as well. But I look at it as, this is, if we're gonna do this, it's probably the best time to do it, just because of the exemptions the school has gotten
That's
and
correct.
some of the things, so.
County's
Keep
going
in mind
down.
one thing, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but,
no.
and I know I've gotten them, and I know about other senior citizens, we've got notification that this was the year to anticipate our taxes to be low from the state. They're telling us what they're doing with the schools for us to anticipate lower taxes. Now, what I'm hearing from our, that's like, we're gonna, when I get my statement, it may be the same or maybe a couple of dollars higher. So then I'm gonna be with the state, hey, what happened, Mr. State? You told me I was gonna get a lower tax bill, and I've got to blame the city of Odem. So, because that's a notification that's been going out by the state, notifying us that we're gonna get lower tax bills, to expect them for 2023, which is 2022, or 2023, lower tax bill. We're not gonna get a lower tax bill. It's either gonna stay the same or maybe go up, like I said, a couple of dollars, depending on how much it impacts. So it's not really, you're not gonna get a consensus that, oh, it's not making an impact, because I've gotten the letters in the mail, and I know other people have also, and we're expecting that to have reduced tax statements. And in fact, it's not gonna be.
Don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm not saying there isn't gonna be an impact, I'm not saying there isn't.
And I'm not projecting that, because I don't know until we get all those rates in. And so as they start going in, you will see, in that countytaxrates.com, you will see that. Okay, so, but remember, the county gave the 20% exemption as well.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And freezing the over 65, that's the thing the county gave as well this year. So, yes, that's going down, but we can't control the value of the value that you got for your property. We don't control that. That
That's
comes
the
from the
appraisal
appraisal
district.
district, yes, sir.
So, I mean,
So you have seen other cities that use,
Yes, and it's not the first year either. There's some that do it every year. They've got to be able to provide the services for their people. I mean, that you have to, and everything's gone up. So this is not the first year that we have multiple cities, and, because it happened the year before. You got to be able, especially in other cities where the values are lower and their houses are depreciating, yes, the homesteads are depreciating, because they do. They've got to be able to provide the services, because we know everything is increased, the water, the sewage, the trash pickup, all of that increases every year. The city of Taft raised their utility rates last year, but this year, and then they did well. This year, they were able to pay off debt to this part of the city that was annexed and de-annexed. So that section of the city no longer has any taxes to the city anymore. So, and they hadn't raised their utility rates in quite a while, but they made that hard decision, and they're doing better.
so there's still kind of a motion, requesting a motion on the floor on proposed tax rate.
Before we make a motion, I have mixed feelings on this. I don't feel that the citizens should have to take the burden because of our city's deficits. I do understand that we are in a mess. I know their community needs us to do right by them. If this is the way to get out of it, then we just need to make the right decision and do right by them.
We heard from one citizen. Are there other citizens that want to talk? How are your feelings about taxes going up this year? Anybody want to talk about that? I know I don't. I don't.
Well, I really don't think that the citizens should have to be the ones that are having to bail out what y'all said is so many years of issues. I mean, we talked Saturday about a whole lot of other options, and today, the only thing y'all are bringing up is raising our taxes instead of the other several things that were discussed. I didn't see anything about the police department in y'all's agenda today, and that is a huge thing that is taken out of your budget. But y'all are ready to go to the citizens and raise our taxes. So I think that that is something that is, I mean, I would be willing to go ahead and start the petition. That's why I just asked her, when do we need to start signing names? When do I need to go door to door? And where do I need to turn it in? Because it's not fair that we are the ones that are having to do it.
The thing about it also is that we're on a planning calendar, and that's why it's here, but we do want to do
This is in our.
cutting budget and all that, exactly what we talked on Saturday. Definitely, every department, police department, whether we have the police department or not, whether they stop going 24/7, we are gonna cut, but we are on a planning calendar. By law, they have to be in the newspaper,
Right.
we have to have public meetings, so that's why we're here.
Right. And so to help through this very, very complicated process, it's broken down step by step by step. And the step right now is to determine what to put in the paper for the maximum amount. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. That will come after the budget's been adopted. Because part of the process, and it's on the calendar, you have to adopt your budget first before you can set your tax rate.
Right, but she said y'all's budget is due October 1st, right?
No.
Y'all's budget, the city's budget, when is it due?
No,
Well, she was saying she wants the tax rates.
I know, but when is y'all's budget due? I thought it was October 1st.
no.
Because didn't y'all do it November 1st and y'all were a month late last year? So if she's trying to get paperwork out by the second week of October, y'all are gonna do y'all's thing October 1st.
No, my goal is, after we get through with this, is to have another budget workshop in the month of September. And then at that point, discuss, what we're going to do as far as budget. Don't get me wrong, this increase in taxes is not gonna get us out of this debt. This is not, we won't even break even.
Well, especially because you won't see it right away either.
If we keep the budget as is, like it was last year, this won't get us out of debt. It won't even break us even. We're gonna have to make drastic cuts in the budget, and we discussed those this weekend, and some of you that were here heard those discussions. And we need to come up with, a huge budget cuts along with the de minimis rate to get out of this mess in the next year or two. And my goal is to get us out, or at least get us somewhere ahead a little bit by the end of this first year, so we don't have to adopt this de minimis rate again next year. To get everybody back to the voter approved rate, is that correct? And then, by then, all our budget cuts have been made, and we're living within our budget. Basically, we're actually being able to pay our bills and hopefully put a little money aside. So don't get me wrong, this is not gonna save us. This is just part of the big picture, or the big plan, to get us out of the situation that we've had for the last 6 years, and I understand everybody's hesitation, and if a petition goes out and we have to roll back the taxes, then we'll have to find other ways to cut our budget even more, and even find ways to generate revenue to cover the difference, so and that's kind of the big picture. And I wish we could be doing it a little at a time, but that train has passed. I was gonna say that boat, but I heard the train, so this is Odem. That train has passed. The opportunity to do it a little at a time is just not feasible right now, because we would just fall deeper and deeper into this debt hole, and then I don't like to say the B word, but there have been cities that have had to file for bankruptcy in the past. I don't want it to be ours, you know? So, I'm hoping that this will be a one-year thing, kind of like a school bond, basically. We'll get back on track. And then next time we're sitting here, you know, when we get together for our workshops next year to discuss our taxes and our budget, that we can say, okay, this is what the numbers look like, and they're looking better. So we don't have to, you know, we can go back to the voter approval rate.
Mr. Mayor, I know some of the things that were discussed on Saturday's budget is, y'all, and I think for tonight also discussed possible increases in utility rates along with the taxes. I'm gonna let you, for my concern and my main reason that I'm here is I know you got a consultant that is helping you out, and that's great. Y'all are doing, I know you're working with what you can, but I have a major concern, and I have not seen anything on, we got into this deficit as a city. Someone was pushing the button. I know there was something about a computer program that was changed, and that computer program is what caused the miscalculation. Yeah, you know, I'm an old man. But I was taught a long time ago when I used the computer only does what that operator hits the buttons, how he or she hits the buttons. What is being, I know you're a consultant, and I don't know if you're an investigator also, but why have I not heard anything about the state is involved saying the city owes them money and hasn't given reports? You know, some of the monies that have been misappropriated or federal funds also, why have we not seen or heard anything that there is a forensic accountant from the Rangers, from the state agencies, federal agencies, come in and take the book. You work forward. You guys are here. You're new, Mr. Mayor. I know what you're going through. You work forward. But let that forensic accountant come in and go through the books. And I tell you what, I would swallow a tax rate and a utility rate increase a lot easier. And it would taste a lot better if I knew that the people that got us into this situation are being pursued and at least being acknowledged and let us know who caused it. Not, we don't know it was the computer glitch. No, right now. And I think what, there's a Rangers in Texas out there that he come and maybe at least get some guidelines on how to visit accountants come in. Not today's budget, not this year's budget, but going to what happened in those books. Who was pushing the buttons? That's a mess. Exactly. And all that person or persons accountable. And that, honestly, I say you make it taste a lot better. Being a tax increase, it tastes a lot better knowing that we're not just saying, oh, you know what, we're gonna go forward, you're gonna pay more, but whoever did it, we're not gonna worry about them. Give me a taste. Let me taste the tax rate taste a little better in my mouth when I know that we've taken initiative to bring a forensic accountant from the state of Texas or the federal government to come and do an audit.
That's exactly what I said.
Go ahead, sir.
Mayor, I might suggest that those comments imply that the next draft will include a $50,000 line item for the investigation, which has been suggested.
Okay, and I'm talking about costs. I'm saying
Let me just.
if the state gets involved, we don't know. That's what I'm saying is ask.
Let me answer.
You're
your question.
interrupting me, telling me you bring in dollars that will cost a line item. What I'm saying is, if we ask the state for help and tell them, you know what, this is a concern. I mean, I'll be willing to go to sit in the bar and talk to Cody and find out, hey, how without cost to the city, how can we have a forensic accountant come in and do an investigation and hold the people that are responsible accountable? And that will make a lot of these cost increases a lot better tasting.
Well, let me answer your question for you so we can move on. When I say that about us moving forward, I talk about because of the situation we're in, don't get me wrong, as we've started going through the system and we've started looking, we have found a lot of errors, as far as, input errors, people that may not have been very knowledgeable with the system. Um, So once we get through this process, if in the process we find anything that we feel was done that may have been illegal or unethical, all we can do is present it to the district attorney's office and say, look, during the process of us working through this, this is what we found. And then that district attorney will decide on how to proceed, and if they decide that there's an then they will get the Texas Rangers involved to do an investigation. So don't get me wrong, I mean, we are taking note of a lot of things that we have found as far as, maybe data entry things that may have not been done correctly, and but in the process, if anything, we find anything, we're gonna present it. I think I said it before, when I was interviewed by the media, that if we find anything that we can move and take legal action against, we're gonna do it. I mean, I'm not just gonna let it go. But right now, our focus is trying to adopt a new tax rate so we can get it to the tax assessor's office. And then later on this month in September, work on our budget. So we can see where we can cut, so we can, move forward, and hopefully in a year, we'll be better off financially. But no, it's not about, just right now, we're so focused because we didn't realize the depth of the situation. When you come in as an elected official, and some of the council members that have been here for a while, didn't realize the depth of the situation, because there wasn't a whole lot of information being presented to them. And now I kind of feel bad for a lot of the council members, even us do, because we brought in, a consultant who has given us a lot of information, and none of us are CPAs, and I kind of tease sometimes with Mr. Paul here. He'll send me an email and I have to look up words on Google because I've never heard some of these words, because they are just way, and I'm glad that he's here to kind of guide us through this process. But going forward, we now all understand the situation. There is no, I myself can't say, I didn't know it was that bad, because I do know now that it's that bad. So these are just steps that we need to take, like Councilman Huerta said, because we have a schedule. But the other stuff, we're still looking into things, and we're going to continue to look into things. But right now, we have to get this done.
Yeah, and I understand totally. The only reason I said it would be great if you could, because I mean, Paul, Mr. Maid is helping you with, what needs to be done today and tomorrow. But if you could have a simultaneous investigation going on, and I know, I'm just speaking as seniors. If we heard, hey, we're gonna get those people, we've got this investigation going on while we're working on this budget, it makes it a lot easier to swallow that pill than just be given a horse pill and no water and swallow it. That's
the benefit of having Mr. Bain here with us. He is knowledgeable in the system, and the data that's in there or that may not be in there can be saved right now. That we can save that data for later if we do need to get law enforcement involved or the district attorney involved. But right now, we just have to go through this process in order, and then we kind of work on that as we get past all this, as we get our budget approved, and then we have time to kind of look into those other things. But with Mr. Bain here, we've been able to recover a lot of data. We've been able to look at data that a lot of these council members had never seen before. But we have to move through this process because if not, we have to start all over.
Is he the new city administrator? I'm sorry, I haven't met Mr. Bain, I did just.
No, he's just here for,
He's a consultant.
he's a consultant, he's only here through the end of September.
But
So it's another line item
the scope,
in the budget before, that's now a line item.
the scope, because there are so many things that could be consuming time. I specifically restricted the scope of my projects to be assist with drafting a budget. Related to that is setting a tax return.
That's right.
That's right.
Excuse me, thank you. And part of that process is also to determine whether or not it's even conceivable that the city might be able to arrange financing. We were told last Friday, no,
It's not possible.
you don't have an audit report in your files
Exactly,
since 2015.
exactly.
Okay, now I have been told that we can expect one soon for 2021.
Can I say something
Yes,
there?
ma'am.
So back to what your taxes are. Once you propose the tax rate, and there's a lot of jurisdictions that are having their meetings tonight, tomorrow I'm gonna be busy. I'm gonna be putting in those proposed tax rates, and then you can go on that website and see what your taxes are. Okay, what they're estimated to be. And so, and you can even call my office, and I have plenty of staff to look in there and kind of help you do it, or, or the folks that aren't, computer savvy, when we can look on there for you and let you know, okay, all of these are done. So, you could kind of look in there and see what it is. And I know everybody's worried, are my tax rates are my taxes gonna go up? But we don't know just yet. So let's get to a proposed tax rate, we'll put it in there, and then we'll look at it. And maybe if they're already going down, then you'll be okay with whatever, with whatever happens maybe. But right now, we don't know until we get these proposed tax rates into the system, and we can see what it's gonna do to your tax bill.
And I think the key thing, at the risk of repeating this, the purpose for tonight is to set the maximum tax rate. The budget still has to be adopted, and the tax rate will still have to be adopted. And I suspect that we need more chairs for this room as that process goes forward. What we are trying to accomplish tonight is to put a notice in the paper of a proposed tax rate. We are also trying to establish amongst council what the calendar looks like. Once those things are done, we can move forward with a little more certainty than what we have right now. Because quite frankly, without the de minimis tax rate, I'm not sure how you're going to get through the calendar year. I assume you want to pay city staff. And part of that process is how much money can we expect to receive when the tax bills are levied? Yes, we had as an agenda item, potential financing from the related entity of the Economic Development Corporation. Don't know. We need to take our steps and go one at a time.
Half of the thing would be what, 0.72
Half of what?
of between the 0.85 and the 0.59?
Maybe what?
0.72?
0.72. The other thing too is you have to realize your debt rate went down 9 cents. It went down, it was 10 cents last year, and it went down because the city only doesn't have that much debt,
You only have $80,000 of debt,
That's it. And so that makes a
of
big
bonded debt.
difference. That makes a big difference. So,
But yet there's a lot of money missing somewhere.
It was spent.
on the debt. Because then you had we had excess collections too, of 23,000 that I collected more, that had to be put into the debt. So, so you're saying, so I'm sorry, tell me again, what you were asking.
He's splitting the difference between the voter approved rate of 54 and the property of the de minimis rate of 85, we'll call that 30 cents, and 54 and 15 is 69 cents, in that range.
We have to take into consideration, though, just looking at numbers, that for every cent that we back from the de minimis rate, we would be losing about 15,000.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right.
About $15,000 in revenue for every cent. So if you're talking about, 12, 14 cents times 15,000. Get 12 cents times 15,000 would be
180.
$180,000 of revenue that we would not get. So 1 cent may seem like very little, but 1 cent is equal to $15,000 that the city would not get in tax revenue. I mean, in the end, the voters have a final say, in the end. Right now, the recommended number would be the de minimis. And that's the only way, if approved, that the city can see itself getting out of debt in at least a year, maybe a year and a half. But and hopefully within a year, we wouldn't have to have the de minimis rate to get us out of debt. By that time, our budget should hopefully be in a better place where our expenses don't exceed our revenue like they have been. This year, our expenses have exceeded our revenue the most. I mean, the line between revenue and expenses this year is the most it's ever been. And that's probably because a lot of things have gone up. So.
You also had.
Sorry, go ahead, sir.
I have a question. Saturday, consultant told the city council that we could not afford the police department. Now, is this decision just gonna be at what council, or do the citizens get a voice on that too?
Well, I don't think that he said that we couldn't afford the police department. I think we talked about that. The police department is a big chunk of our budget, and it is in most areas. I think what the consultant said, speaking to the chief of the state police chiefs association, was that most cities our size don't have a police department because you can't afford it. But he didn't say that this city can't afford it. He never made that comment. He just said that is a big chunk of our budget. Well, this is something that the city council members, along with myself, will have to, look at and see what alternatives we have.
So that decision is gonna be solely on the council decides.
Well, the citizens, of course, always have an input. As long as I'm mayor, your input is always going to be important to us because we all report to you all. You guys don't understand. You asked us to come here and make these hard decisions, and they are hard because this decision will affect not only my mom, but it'll affect my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. It'll affect everyone, but I have to put that aside and say, I took this position, I ran for mayor because I wanted what was best for our city. I want our city to have good streets. I want our city to have, a good water system, a good sewer system. I want our city to look clean and to thrive, because there are some companies out there and developers that are looking at our city. So, yeah, I want our little city to look good and to shine. So I'm willing to make, the decision and recommendations, I should say, in spite of, that it might affect my family. because I hope that in a year, we don't have to be in this situation anymore, and that we can go back to what our tax rate, bring our taxes back down, and I hope that we don't have to increase, our utility rates much. If we can do the right budget cuts and, have the right tax rate in place, that maybe we don't have to touch those other services much, if at all. But those are things that we have to look at. I mean, so, it does concern me, and I've been working with Mr. Bain for a couple of weeks now, 3 weeks now, and of all of the members here, I have been like, this just bothers me. I have to go, I work from till 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I come and meet with Mr. Bain here, and we're here till 9:30, 10 o'clock, most days during the week. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, sometimes we'll meet here in City Hall and go over these numbers, because I didn't want to make any recommendations that I didn't have a full understanding of how it was going to impact our community. And if it's going to impact our citizens, I want it to benefit our citizens. I want you guys to be able to see what you've invested in, because this is an investment. You are the investors of this community, just like any business, just like if you're an investor of HEB, you're going to invest money into a company. You want that company to be successful. So I see our community as the investors here. And we all answer to you, and I want to be able to show you guys in a year that investment paid off. I don't want to say a year from now, well, we didn't do everything that we should have done, so now we're going to have to do a little bit more. So,
Mayor, you can make recommendations to the city council and to everybody, but bottom line, you don't make motions, you don't vote on the motions. It all falls on the city council's shoulders. They've been here for a long time, many of them. This comes down to the city council doing the right thing for the citizens of Odem, and it's time it happens. And that's regarding the police department, the taxes, the rates, everything. And I sat through all 5 hours of Saturday.
So you're correct, but I want to say that their decision is based on the hard work that myself and Mr. Bain, and I want to include Ms. Hilda because she has been stepping up. I mean, she's we're gonna have to give her a gold medal because she has taken on a lot of responsibility. Without a city secretary or city administrator, she had to step up and kind of run the day-to-day operation and, do her bookkeeping, get bills paid, get checks ready, and she has to work with Mr. Payne. Which I don't think that was in her initial contract or agreement with the city, but she has worked, she stays here with us most days when I come here after work. She will stay here with us. Sometimes I have to run her off and just tell her, you can go home now. She's like, no, I'll stay here in case you need something printed out or you need something out of the computer. And she stays here till 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 with us as well. But so I understand what you're saying, that ultimately it does come down to the city council's vote, but their vote, I have to do my due diligence and make sure that they have the information that they need to make, an informed decision. And I hope that we have presented enough information to them so we can make an informed decision today on our taxes. And also when we sit down again to talk about our budget, I hope that I presented. And if and I've told them on several occasions, if there's anything that they need, just let me know, shoot me an email, and I will get Mr. Bain or Ms. Hilda or myself, to try to get them that information. So I want them to be able to make an informed decision because it is important, and like I said, you guys are the investors. I mean, all of us, and we want to make sure that we get, what we put in, our money's worth. And that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can do.
I don't think anyone in the room or in the city is questioning what you've done in the first 90 days in office. You stepped up to the plate and you've been extraordinarily transparent. You've done a lot of work, a lot of hours. I know you've been out to the city sewer plant weekends and stuff like that. Nobody's questioning that. I definitely am not. But this comes down to what the city council is going to support you and all your efforts, whether or not they're going to support you on it or not.
And Mayor, I think they should help you too. I think that you use that excuse that they weren't aware of a lot of things. Some of them have been there multiple terms, and using that excuse for them that they were not aware is not fair, because they should have been aware. And if they don't know, they should have asked questions, because whenever you don't ask questions, that's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
The questions were asked.
But you still didn't know.
The questions were asked. We were getting information back. And that's where we were going by.
I can tell you,
I promise you we were asked.
I can tell you that before I had actual access to the computer system, I was only going by numbers that were being provided to me. And I think that the first city council meeting, I think I made a comment that our expenditures were like our income was about 200,000 and 250, and our expenditures were around 300,000. But that's the numbers that I got. Those were the numbers that were given to me. Once I was able to get access to our system, I realized that those, and again, I don't know if it was just not knowing the system, but I realized that that wasn't true. The numbers were a lot higher. And who knows, I mean, we may, as we continue to pick through, we may realize that, at this point, I think our revenue is about 250,000 a month, and our expenses are at around 400,000.
Well, through the 30th day of June, your expenses exceeded your revenues by $800,000. Most of that was the result of significant repair work done in the sewer plant and the treatment plants.
But a lot of that also was excessive amount of spending that the mayor had already put a stop to. That's not gonna reoccur. That the damage has been done.
For this year.
For this year. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's continuing, ain't it? Because the sewer plant is not up to compliance, so that we're still gonna spend money. Or is it in compliance?
From what I've heard, it needs a little bit of work, not that much. Okay, I don't know in dollar amount how much that is, but I can tell you right now that the only problem I'm having is that we're doing this proposed tax rate before our budget, and I know we're on a timeline, but if we can find enough cuts in the budget to where we don't have to do this.
But if this is the one that we propose, is this the one we have to go with?
No,
She said no.
it's not to exceed. This is to keep your options open.
Right, you can adopt less, but you can't go over it. You can go to it, can't go over it, because then you have to start the whole process.
Well, Saturday we talked about that. On Saturday, we talked about what's the possibility of happening.
But you're still subject to that petition, because you're over the VAR. You're still subject to the petition. Anything over the VAR, you're subject to.
Let me make something really clear about the discretionary spending. The discretionary spending that I put a halt to, that is not stuff that will be halted forever, because those are still little things that some of the departments need to function on a day-to-day basis. What I'm talking about discretionary spending, like the judge, if she needs to order files, I said, for right now, use what you have, or you know what, let me see if City Hall has some files holders or something that they can borrow, you can have, instead of spending money on that. If the judge needs envelopes, you know what, let me see if one of the other departments has envelopes for you to use. Those are little things that eventually the judge is gonna have to buy files. She's gonna have to buy because she has to send stuff. So the day-to-day operation, the stuff like paper for the printers, you know, the, whatever that stuff is you put in the printer.
Toner.
The toners, you know, right now, it's like, you know what, go make copies at City Hall, or go make copies at the judge's office, or go, because somebody ran out of toner. Those are small discretionary, I mean, yeah, it adds up, but it was just meant to get us past this fiscal year, not to get us keep it going for indefinitely. It was just so at the end of this fiscal year, our deficit wasn't so big. So that line that was starting to go downward didn't get any wider. So that's the only reason. It doesn't mean that they're gonna stay there forever. I mean, because they still need paper, they still need toner, they still need printer for their printers, they still need, you know, things like that. But right now, they're being considerate enough, and everybody's banding together to get us through the end of this month. I think is the last month, September. Is the last month of the fiscal year.
September.
And then, of course, once our new budget kicks in, you know, then we have to take into consideration that some of those expenses will come back. You know, I mean, we have to buy paper, we have to buy toner, stuff like that.
But by then, we should have
By
had a
then,
budget, and we have to make cutbacks. If we're gonna ask the community to help us, then we in turn have to do something ourselves to ensure that we have a budget that is not in the negative, and that we continue that. Not that we borrow money and we continue the way we've been going without looking at everything, making the cuts. Those are gonna be some tough decisions, just like this is a tough decision, because we're asking the community to assist us. We're asking them to help us get out of this situation. Many things happen throughout the years, and I want to say I totally appreciate that Mayor has been very transparent with us. We have so much information, like you said, so much that sometimes we don't even know where to start, which is something that I have never experienced. And I do ask questions, and they'll let you know. I email them, sometimes 10 o'clock at night, I'm sending emails because I have a lot of questions now that we have a lot of information. So as far as the fact that there's things, you know, people have been on the city council and they should have known, it's impossible. It's impossible for us to know. We only know what's provided to us. That's all we know. And if we don't see everything, there's no way that we can know everything.
City, we have known that the city was in this predicament. I guarantee you that the budget was a lot different last year. We made cuts, we would have done what we didn't have. But we did. So now, we need to move forward. One and a half. I'm gonna make a motion that we move forward with this. And hopefully, the city, the community assistance. Okay? We gotta do our part.
Can you please be specific as to what you're?
So I'm gonna make a motion that we, as
The proposed tax rate of any amount of, yes, 0.8. All the numbers, please.
0.854706.
I have a second.
But you also have to divide it up between M&O and INS.
Got it.
You gotta tell me where. INS, you already know what it is.
So the motion has been made to propose the de minimis amount of 0.85.
Consisting of an INS tax rate of 0.15 0.5274 and an M&O rate of 0.839433 for a combined total de minimis rate of 0.854707, which based upon certified tax roll of $150,686,730 will result in a tax levy of $1,287,930. The voter approved rate for the record consists of the same 0.015274 INS tax rate and M&O tax rate of 0.525385 for a total tax rate of 0.540659, which would generate a total tax levy of $814,701. The difference between those two is $473,229. Mayor, you have a motion on the floor. Has it been seconded?
Waiting on a second.
I'll second it.
Second. By Councilmember Mandela. And we'll take a vote, place
Is
one.
there another discussion?
You asked
Sorry.
for
Yeah,
discussion.
sorry, with this, do we have any discussion?
I just want to say that I'm speaking for me, and I know some other people probably feel the same way. If you eventually adopt the de minimis, I know it doesn't have to go because it's up to y'all whether to go. That's gonna hurt me and a lot of people. I would rather see some of the utilities go up than to see my tax rates go up a lot, and mine will go up very badly.
And I think one of the reasons that is because this is our opportunity to do it, whether we use it, whether we don't use it.
Right.
But today we have to make that decision. Now, the committee can say, they can petition, and we don't even have that option. But if we want to use some of it, we may not use none of it. I don't know until we do our budget, but we have to at least get it done. That's why.
Okay, so my question would be then, this is what you propose, and you have the 2 public hearings. And for the group of people or the public that shows up, and we voice our opinions that we don't want that, y'all are the ones that vote.
No, it goes to, it's gonna go to an election. If the 3%.
If you go for the de minimis.
If we go for a de minimis and the petition, if we 3% of the registered voters petition
I
the
understand that.
proposed, then it'll go to election, and then the community will decide as a whole on what the final tax rate is going to be. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then all you need is about less than 50 people
To put it on the ballot.
to put it on the ballot,
ballot.
To petition.
to petition.
So if the majority, in other words, if for the majority of the public that doesn't want that, all we need to do is go out and do a petition to stop it, and y'all cannot do that, and then y'all can't
It goes to vote. It goes to an
go to a
election,
vote, and then it can't be a.
and then
She would still collect the monies and all that, and then it would refund it
Right.
if it goes to the ballot.
You're correct. 'Cause
So
the
does that
rate-
mean I have to pay it anyway?
Well, you-
So
No.
rate will be
So
set.
So then I have to
It
pay
takes
it
a year to
anyway.
get
to get it.
Wait. So the tax bill will go out in October, the election is in November, and if it goes back to the VAR, I will send out another, tax bill. You could wait till the 31st of January to pay without penalty and interest.
Okay,
A lot of people do.
But-
If you're over 65, you can do it in 4 payments. So,
but
I don't know.
then we still have to pay for an election,
Mhm.
right?
that's correct.
Well, we don't have the money to pay for an election.
Well, that's gonna be our
That's our
problem.
problem.
That's
I
not the
understand
that's the
that, I
citizen's
understand
problem.
that, but that's
So,
still
Well,
money.
wait a
that's
minute,
in
you
the
can't say
budget.
it's your problem though,
Well,
Mayor,
No, it's
because
ours.
We're gonna have to
ultimately
figure
it'd be
out-
our
yeah,
problem,
well, we're
because
gonna have
we're
to
the ones that
figure-
are gonna have to bail y'all out.
well, we're gonna have to figure out a way to pay for that election,
But I
because
mean, I
it's
just.
gonna be,
And it's not cheap, it's 20 to 25.
I know, I know.
so,
And if you're only gonna have an election for just the ballot on
That's
that,
That's it.
then,
well, let's just look at it this way. If we do our job when it comes down to the budget, we'll have the $20,000 to pay for the election, okay?
Nah.
So it's just a matter of us doing
I
our
don't
job
believe
come
that.
budget time, to make sure that we have, if it has to go to that, so. Mr. James?
I simply wanted to point out that I consider each of the participants on council as well as in the audience to be reasonable people. That said, reasonable people can have different conclusions and answers. If these reasonable people are presented with a petition in a week or two, that might go into their decision as to the budget that they adopt.
Well, I would certainly hope so.
Me too. That's the point I wanted to make.
Because also, we're looking at not just property, I mean, like residents, we're looking at property owners that have rental property, and we're looking at
Businesses?
businesses.
Well, I mean, I had one property owner, on Sunday, after church. And, we were talking about the meeting, because somebody told him about it, and he said, well, you know what, dude, y'all do whatever you want, because I'll just raise the rent. I'm gonna cover the taxes, yeah, I'll just have to raise the rent on my tenants, I'm not gonna let them live for the same amount that they're paying for the next year, so,
Makes it
which is, I mean, it's basic math,
Just
if you
pass,
own.
it's passed through for everybody,
Exactly,
just like everything.
just like the water bill goes up, we're supposed to pass it on, so, it's unfortunately for us who own our homes, we can't jack up the rent, on our tenants, now, we may take in a tenant to pay for our taxes. I have a sofa that somebody could potentially sleep in and pay rent, but unfortunately, we can't pass that on. So that's why it's important that you guys also know, what avenues you have to petition the decision. Right now, we are here, we have a motion to accept the de minimis rate, we have a second by Ms. Candela. Is any other discussion?
Are we still gonna have that investigation about the missing money?
Well, that's down the road. Right now, that we're gonna just finish discussing this. And, so if there's no more discussion on the tax, we're gonna go ahead and take a vote. Place one? Place two?
Yes.
Place three?
No.
Place, we're not here. Place five?
Yes.
So we have 2 yeses and 2 nos. That leaves me, and, I vote yes. So the motion passes or carries. We will move forward with the proposed tax rate. And again, as citizens, we've kind of been, hopefully we've been very clear about your options to petition the decision today. And I encourage you guys to participate. I mean, that's what being in this role is. We do answer to y'all, but we also have to make decisions to make sure that the city is doing well financially down the road. We're gonna move forward to scheduling the public hearings. The public hearing will be scheduled for September 12th. And location and time will be to be announced. September 12th.
Well,
Have to have location and time.
right.
And location and time will, the location will be here, the time to be announced let me see, September 12th falls on.
You've got till the end of the day Wednesday, I think.
So September 12th at 7 PM here in the chambers. And the agenda will be posted on the bulletin board outside as well as the Facebook page and our website. We're gonna move to item,
If you would please also, as a backup, September 19th, in the event that the budget is not adopted.
Doesn't it have to be published in the newspaper?
I'll
Oh,
get
yes.
into the newspaper on the 31st, it'll come out on the 7th, and then it'll go on the 12th or even the 19th to adopt that tax rate.
so we're gonna try to have another workshop for the budget prior to September 12th. We'll probably be looking at probably September 9th, a Saturday, again, Saturday morning.
Mayor, do we still have an attorney?
We do.
He just doesn't come to these
Well, he
meetings?
wasn't available today. It was kind of short notice, so. And if we do not adopt the budget on the 9th, then,
Excuse me, on the 12th?
I mean, on the 12th, that's a public hearing for we're having our budget meeting
You're having a workshop on the 9th.
on the 9th. I'm sorry. On the 9th, we're having our workshop, then on September 12th, we'll have a public hearing. And hopefully we'll adopt the budget on the 12th.
Yes.
Do you have a time for the budget workshop?
The budget workshop be at 9 o'clock on the 9th as well. Like this
Na,
past.
na, 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 na.
So I'll have tacos again for everyone, so you don't have to eat breakfast, bring your own coffee though. Yes, sir.
Mayor, being that the vote was split, 2 noes, 2 yes, do they have a plan B for the city of Odem, or just voting no for show up there?
We'll find out on budget time what.
Would they like to address us?
Are to, we'll
I
have that
said,
discussion.
can y'all address us of why y'all vote no? As being the
I'd
council, I
like
think
to,
y'all
I'd
need
like
to
to
be
do the
united.
budget first. I'd like to do the budget first, then look at the budget. And, a couple of things have been said about maybe the police department, maybe some other areas that we can cut there. I'd rather
So
take
you're
that
open to
route,
that?
take that route, and, somebody brought up a good point about utilities going up. And everything else is going up, fuel's going up, everything's going up. And if we can do that, you know what? I'd rather bite the bullet the first year on that than do the property tax.
That's a plan B.
Right, as a plan B. But I really, the mayor's given us lots of information. And I've been looking at some of the budget information he's provided to us, seeing where we can move things around. And believe me, there's a lot of information he's been providing, which I appreciate. We receive more information now than we ever have.
Wow.
And it's just going through with everything. But I was hoping that we had more time so we could make that decision before we did this one. But without that, I couldn't decide. And listening to you all.
Waiting, I mean, Mayor Maldonado has perfect attitude that everyone should have, is a 5-year-old attitude. Why? Why? That's why he's getting answers. How do you all lose your 5-year-old attitude? Years ago. And I asked why. Well, I just take it for granted that over there, right? Stop that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen. Tell me exactly what we're doing. When he first came in, they gave him information that he didn't think was in that. When he got his hands into the computer, he got the real smoke. So he wanted to know, I say, don't do that. He's like a 5-year-old attitude. Why? That's the reason for that. Why? He got it fresh in his mind.
We've been rolling up different groups, different committees. Mayor's done a very good job of communicating this. We communicate with almost every day. We never received so many emails from the mayor like we have.
So you're saying Billy, when he was mayor, he didn't communicate with you because y'all were on the council together? You know, I'm putting you on the spot because y'all three were on the council together, so Billy didn't communicate channel that information?
there's a gap there.
Yeah,
you
want to
Keep that in mind.
We're up here trying to make the right, good decisions as the best we can. And I apologize for the position we're in. We're gonna do everything we can to try to get out of it without having a huge impact on everyone. And if it means looking at the budget and doing away with a big item,
Thank you.
then that's what it means. You know, and then hopefully get back on track, because we know we're all gonna be bypassed in 7 years. We wanna do what's best for our town and our city. So some of y'all have invested into the city, opening small businesses here and there, that's great, I hope you all stay. There's a chance y'all could just say, hey, I want to do it. You're taking a risk, just let me know. But that's why, sir, I wasn't able to approve it.
As long as I know there's a plan B
Yes, sir.
and that you're willing to make
Again,
some
just
cuts.
because we approve it doesn't mean that's what we can always go with that.
And I said no because I'm agreeing with Amanda. The people shouldn't be punished for what we're in. So that's why. Now, I know there was 2 individuals that mentioned, if there's gonna be an investigation and all that. When we all were reelected again, there was some stuff that was uncovered, but we can't talk about it. That might come in the future, but there was missing monies or misappropriation of monies, or maybe I should say overspending on certain departments. So that will come later. Again, I know somebody else mentioned about the wastewater treatment plant and all that. We've seen it in the news, so, but we don't want to mention yet. As we're doing this, it's gonna uncover itself. Who pushed the button like you mentioned earlier?
Well, and this councilman brought that up. I'm not sure who reported all this stuff to the media, and what their intentions were. Because the last thing that we need, as a city is a big fine from a state agency, because we don't have a line item for fines from the state agency. My goal is to work with the state agency. I reached out to our representative, Lozano's office. I explained to him the situation that was going on. I plan to work with him and his staff, and along with TCEQ to hopefully suspend any penalties that we might be getting, allow us time to fix it, so we don't get these fines. So, like Mr. Dominguez said, there's a lot of stuff going on that's happening in conjunction with working long hours for the budget and the tax. There are other things that I'm doing, that we're doing to try to address all these other concerns. So, I mean, we're not just leaving one thing for another. We're trying to do it all at the same time. But sometimes we have to put a little bit more effort into one thing for now, and then try to get the others, done later on. So, but don't get me wrong. I mean, we're still uncovering things, but we can't, really talk about them because we don't know how, whether it's legal, illegal, just unethical, we don't know. So right now, we're just focused on one task to try to get our budget so we can get our financials in order, within the next year. And I appreciate the community, and if you guys allow us to have this de minimis rate, I assure you that I'm gonna do everything I can. I'm gonna be very transparent with y'all. I have been transparent with y'all from day one. And everybody on this table is gonna have to account for their decisions going forward, because it can't any longer say, we didn't know. They have to answer to y'all. And when I think I posted some stuff about the meeting on Facebook, and there was a lot of dialogue back and forth. And I've never seen the community so involved. Social media, sometimes, you have to delete stuff because they get a little crazy, because it's easy to attack people on social media. But what I want, all those people that respond on social media, I want them to come here and face us and ask the questions, like you make time out of your schedule to come to be here. And everyone else make time out of your schedule because you care. because we want to be able to answer to you directly. I'm not gonna answer to you on social media. All I'm doing is giving you information. This is what we're working on. This is what's going on in the community, whether our maintenance guys are out working on a project or something. But I'm not gonna respond on social media to a bunch of questions. I just don't type fast enough, I'm still figuring it out. So I'm not gonna sit there and type, especially on this, because most of it is on here. I think I'm getting like carpal tunnel on my thumbs. I would rather that you come, call, say, Mayor, I wanna set up a meeting with you. I will meet you on Fridays, I'll meet you on Saturdays, I'll meet you on Sunday after church. I don't have my mom will tell you, I don't have a schedule most days now, She don't even know where I am most days. I come in, ¿Dónde andabas? Where were you? I'm like, I was at City Hall, I was telling Mr. Bain, I had to put, what's that called, 360 app on my phone so my wife would know I'm at City Hall. I'm not out at Sam's, having wings and a beer. So, all joking around.
What's for dinner?
Mostly fried chicken most days, Mr. Bain. All joking around. We understand how serious this is, and I think all council members, I send out emails, and if they don't respond, whether it's a text or an email that I send with information, I'm just gonna assume that they get it. If they don't respond to me when I send an email with questions, I'm just gonna assume you read all this, and I have a whole bunch there, and you understand it. And if you don't understand it, then I expect an email back saying, hey, you send me all this stuff, and I really don't get it. And I will do my best to explain it to them, and if I can't, then I'll say, call Mr. Bain, and he will walk you through, whether through Zoom, I think he's even met Ms. Yolanda. So he will make time out of his schedule to make sure that everyone at this table understands exactly what it is they're getting. Now, if they don't respond, then I'm gonna assume that they understand everything I gave them, and that they're gonna use that information they're not gonna come back and say, well, I really didn't understand what you sent me. Well, then you should have made an effort to either contact me so I could explain it, or contact Mr. Bain, because Mr. Bain is not gonna be here forever. He will be here for a very short period of time, and then we're on our own.
And I'm still there.
And Ms. Mart's also there, so we could always reach out to her for more. And I speak to mayors on a daily basis. I speak to other city managers on a daily basis. The city manager from Portland just sent me a lot of information by email today. So I would understand a little bit about this process. So I'm constantly on the phone with agencies from the state, because I want to be able to explain to them, what it is that, if I'm going to recommend something, I want to be able to explain it correctly and understand it correctly as well. So we're going to move on to item C, which is discuss, consider, and take action on a loan from Odem Economic Development Corporation.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we table that. I think we need to wait, because if our goal is to help small businesses, we'll take that money from EDC. I think we need to wait and look at our options, and then we can bring it back to the table. That's my recommendation.
So there's a motion to table this item. Do I have a second?
No, second.
Mr. Woodtown will second. Any discussion? Any discussion?
So how,
Go ahead, ma'am.
so if we table it, is this something like for only if we need it, or is it something that we're looking at doing?
It's just something that we were looking at to help with our financial situation, because there's a possibility.
It's just a loan.
It would just be a loan that would pay back with interest, or we could look at other options to help, fund some of our capital, our projects as well. So we're still kind of looking at that. no discussion?
Mr. Bain said earlier, technically, you were not, because of no audits reported or in hand, you weren't eligible for any loan from anyone.
Well, that would be from a bank, from a loan institution. This would be actually from a.
This is still a loan in the books. I mean, it's gonna be on the city budget as a line item, as a loan that was received, being paid. I'm just saying, that's where
Well,
the attorney
again-
should be here for the technicality of the legality of it.
Again, we would have to consider what we're gonna cut from our budget, to be able to pay back a loan, whether it's from our economic development, whether it's from a, lending institution. We would still have to, somehow find it in the budget. So that's kind of still down the road. So I have a motion to table, and I have a second by Councilman Huerta. We're gonna go ahead and vote.
Mayor,
This one,
I just had a question. Now, who establishes the tax, like the interest rate on that loan?
we would have to have attorneys. The EDC would have to bring kind of an attorney to the
Oh,
table.
okay.
They would work with our city attorney, and we would get a contract drawn up, just like any loan that
Okay.
you would have. So that would be kind of something that we would, work together. I mean, we wouldn't want a conflict where our city attorney would draw it all up, so they would have to bring in their attorney and work with our city attorney. But that's down the road, I hope.
The EDC's attorney?
Well, the EDC would have to bring in an attorney to represent them, to draw up a contract. And then the city attorney would, they would work together to make sure that, whatever interest rate or, all the,
Oh,
legalities of the contract, and then, it would have to be approved.
We can avoid all that because there are items that economic development can pay for. So if we're gonna assist on the wastewater treatment plant, then the mayor and staff can come up with a plan and say, hey, well, we need to fix this, this, and then it's gonna cost X amount of dollars, then
That would go
EDC
under
approves it,
infrastructure.
then you approve just for that.
no.
Let's say, we need a roof at the library, then, insurance doesn't cover it, EDC can pay for something like that.
What about those fire trucks?
I
Can they pay for that?
No,
Go ahead.
I don't know, but.
no,
I can't.
I have a question though. Why would we need to table it? Why couldn't we actually approve it? And that doesn't mean that it has to be used.
Well, I would want to table it myself. I mean, just my recommendation, because, Councilman Falcon's not here, and he's the president of the EDC, and I would prefer that he have input in this, so. Now, I want to just say, I'm sorry, Mr. Bain, go ahead.
No, well, as to the projects in the future, which the EDC might participate in to assist in the improvement of the community, that was not the reason for exploring getting a loan from the EDC. We were exploring the idea of getting a loan from the EDC to help meet your cash flow needs as they already exist.
No, I understand that, but. that
I understand.
You will not be helping small.
Oh, it does when the loan's paid back, because then the EDC has the money.
So let me.
It's a timing issue.
Yeah, let me just make this kind of, so we can, and Mr. Huerta's correct, Councilman Huerta's correct. Now, we could go to the EDC and say, I need $200,000 to finish fixing up the wastewater treatment plant. But you know what? The city doesn't have to pay that money back. That's just money that we're gonna use to fix the wastewater treatment plant. So, like Councilman Dominguez just said, we take $200,000 out of that EDC and we put it into the wastewater treatment plant. The EDC will never see that money again. Just like when we take money to businesses in the community. Whether it's 10,000 here, 5,000 here, 20,000 here, that money you never see there. Sometimes you could put $9,000 into a project, because they're gonna start a business, and then that business is successful, they don't pay the EDC back. That money is just money that we gave to them, so they could start their business, or maybe put up a sign, or put up, a banner, or whatever. So, the the city could go and say, we need $200,000 to fix our wastewater treatment plant. But we didn't want to do that because, Councilman Dominguez said, there's still a lot of things in the community, businesses who need help. So our idea was that we would take a loan and we would pay it back. So like that, there's still gonna be money going back to them so they can use to help small businesses. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love to take $200,000 from the EDC to fix the wastewater treatment plant and not have to pay it back. Who wouldn't? I mean, if you could go to the bank today and they're gonna give you a $5,000 loan and you don't have to pay it back, who wouldn't take that deal? But we didn't want to do
The
that.
lift station too.
The lift stations, we could use
That was
that kind of money.
150,000 that the EDC helped with.
So our plan was, if we can get a loan from the economic development, then we can pay them back and they can still continue to use that with interest. And they can still continue to help the small businesses in our community and other small projects around town. So that was the reason that we were looking at a possibility of getting a loan from the EDC. So they didn't just lose that money and not see it again. But again, there are still some legalities that we have to look at. And if, you know, the EDC chooses to just give $200,000, you know, whatever it takes to fix the wastewater treatment plant or whatever other project the city has. If we only spend $180,000, we'll give the EDC back what we don't use. But again, our plan, our idea was to take a loan and then pay it back to the EDC so they can continue to have that revenue there to help small businesses.
But I would rather see us repair our wastewater treatment plant, our lift stations and everything, because that affects your residents. And then we wouldn't have to pay it back and it'll build up again to help businesses come in.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sorry, that
Well,
wastewater treatment plant's in dire needs and it needs.
As vice president of EDC, we were having discussions of awarding that money, loaning it to y'all to make sure that our employees, make sure they had a payroll check or being able to use for any kind of major repair. Last thing you want to do is have your employees quit on you because of the fear of no money being there. That was the reason the EDC, the five of us agreed, Councilman West and another citizen voted against it, but we're looking more into taking care of the employees, making sure there's cash there. So that's something y'all need to consider.
So that's gonna be, something that we're gonna table for today, and we're gonna allow, Councilman Falcone to be present because he is the president of the EDC. So we have a motion, we've had some discussion. A motion was by Councilman Dominguez, a second by Councilman Huerta. We're gonna go ahead and vote. Phase one, the table.
Yes.
Phase two. Phase three.
Yes.
Phase five.
Yes.
So the motion will be tabled. I don't have anything to report. I think we've said enough for today. Anybody else have anything to report? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, motion made by Ms. Councilman Candela, second by Councilman Alvaro, and we are adjourned.